The Painter's Curse. Elena Soren was a painter whose work felt alive. Her art seemed to pull emotions from people, stirring joy, sorrow, or even fear with uncanny precision. Critics hailed her as a prodigy, while her friends called her obsessed. She preferred the word focused asterisk. On a stormy night, a knock at her studio door startled her. She rarely had visitors, especially this late. Pulling her paint-streaked apron tight around her, she opened the door to find a tall man, soaked from the rain. His coat dripped until her doorstep, and a strange amulet hung from his neck, glowing faintly in the dim light. "Elena Soren?" he asked, his voice low and gravelly. "Yes," she replied, her curiosity piqued. Without further introduction, he produced a wrapped canvas from beneath his coat. "I need you to restore this painting. No one else can do it." Elena unfolded the cloth, revealing a peculiar work. It depicted a swirling black void, chaotic and alive, with a single, glaring eye at the center. The eye's intensity was unnerving, as though it could see right into her. "Where did you get this?" she asked, running her fingers along the cracked surface of the paint. "That's not your concern," the man said. "Your job is to fix it." Elena bristled at his tone but couldn't deny the challenge intrigued her. She nodded, and he placed the canvas carefully in her hands. "Don't paint after midnight," he added abruptly, his voice almost a growl. "What?" But before she could get an explanation, the man turned and disappeared into the rain. Alone in her studio, Elena examined the painting. It was ancient, older than anything she'd worked on before. The cracks in the paint seemed to hum faintly under her touch, as if the canvas itself were alive. Shrugging off her unease, she set it on her easel. The next morning, she began her work. She mixed her paints carefully, matching the original tones and textures, and started applying delicate strokes to repair the damaged areas. The void in the painting seemed to shift subtly under her brush, as if responding to her touch. That night, she had a vivid dream. She was walking through a dark, twisted forest beneath a blood-red sky. The trees groaned as if alive, their branches clawing at the air. Something followed her, its presence a heavy weight on her back, but every time she turned, she saw nothing. She woke with a start, her heart racing. The next morning, when she checked the painting, she froze. The swirling void she'd been working on was no longer a chaotic mass. It had taken shape, transforming into a forest eerily similar to the one in her dream. The trees stretched further than she remembered painting, their gnarled trunks more detailed than anything she had added.
Elena tried to shake off the feeling of unease and kept working. But the more she painted, the more her dreams intensified. Each night, she wandered deeper into the forest, the unseen presence drawing closer. Each morning, the painting seemed to grow as if it were painting itself. One evening, driven by frustration and defiance, Elena ignored the man's warning and kept painting past midnight. The room felt colder than usual, and the faint hum from the canvas grew louder. She was adding the final details to a shadow in the forest when her brush slipped, and she nicked her finger. A single drop of blood fell onto the canvas. The reaction was immediate. The painting pulsed as though alive, and the shadow she had been working on expanded, twisting into something grotesque. A pair of glowing eyes stared back at her from the shadow, filled with malice. Panicking, Elena grabbed a rag to wipe away the blood, but the canvas absorbed it before she could act. The Hun turned into a low growl, and for the first time, Elena felt the presence in the room with her. The next day, she sought out the man who had brought her the painting. She searched for hours, asking gallery owners and art collectors if they had seen someone matching his description. No one had. That night, the forest in her dream wasn't empty. The shadow had taken form, a towering creature with limbs that bent unnaturally. It didn't just follow her this time, it spoke, its voice a guttural hiss. "You've made a mistake." Elena woke screaming, her body drenched in sweat. The painting was different now. The forest stretched endlessly, the creature looming in the background. No matter where she stood in the studio, its glowing eyes followed her. She tried to destroy the canvas, but the materials wouldn't burn or tear. As the days passed, the boundary between dream and reality blurred. Elena began seeing the shadow in the corners of her studio, hearing its voice whispering her name. Finally, she realized the truth. The painting wasn't meant to be restored. It was a prison, and her actions had set its prisoner free. The last time anyone saw Elena, she was seen dragging the canvas into the woods outside the city. Days later, her studio was found empty, the easel overturned and paint spilled across the floor. The painting was gone, and so was she. But rumors began to spread of a dark, twisted forest growing deep in those woods, a place where the trees groaned like they were alive. And in the heart of the forest, some claimed to see a faint glow 2 eyes, watching.